Greetings, this is your instructor James Stevens, and in today's screencast-o-matic video, we're going to be covering Chapter 7, Energy Balance and Weight Control out of your textbooks. I'm going to go through some of the relevant slides in the first part of the PowerPoint notes, and then when we get back together in class, we'll do some hands-on activities related to these items. So it goes without saying that obesity, pardon the expression, is a big problem in the United States. Currently, more than 2/3 of U.S. adults are overweight, and approximately 1/3 are obese. When you look at the world's population, it's just staggering and mind-blowing to think about how epidemic obesity has become worldwide. We are 17 million tons overweight. Just to put that into a little bit of perspective as far as the US goes, we only make up about 5% of the world's population, yet we account for almost 1/3 of the world's weight. We're 5% of the world's population, but we're 33% of the world's weight. Just by comparison, Asia, which has 61% of the world's population, has only 13% of the world's weight. So we are leading the world in a dubious category. Some red flags, in addition to just the status of being overweight or obese, is if you've had some recent rapid weight gain. But probably most importantly, as we've learned in this class, it's that abdominal obesity where the fat accumulates close to the organs that appears to be the most harmful and predictive of disease. So here's the most recent data we have from the CDC on obesity in the United States. You see that it's a color-coded map. We don't even have any states that are below 20% currently. But there are a few states, Colorado included, that you see are in the 20% category here in the western part of the country, and then a few states in the northeast part of the country. As you see also, there's a good portion of obesity in what is called the Midwest and also the southeast part of the country. So this is 2012 data. Notice that it's self-reported obesity. Self-reported, and if you understand human nature, you probably know that most people would be hesitant to report themselves as obese. So how do they get to this data? Well, what they do is they're using BMI, body mass index, which we will discuss and measure in class. And BMI is based on your height and weight. So it's a relatively simplistic indicator of one's weight status and overall health status, right? It's not a perfect tool. So in this equation that's used to calculate BMI, the taller one is and the leaner they are, the lower their BMI, and vice versa. The shorter one is and the higher their weight, then the higher their BMI. So this is a phone survey. Operators call people at their homes and ask them to report their height and weight. They don't ask them for their BMI, of course. They ask them what their height and weight is, and then researchers take that data and calculate BMI. Well, going back to human nature, if someone calls you on the phone, says how tall you are, you might fudge that up by a half an inch, 3/4 of an inch, round up, right? Someone asks you what your weight is, you might give them the lower weight or the lowest recent weight that you can remember, certainly not the one at your doctor's office where that scale always measures you a few pounds higher than your home bathroom scale. So what ends up happening is your BMI comes out to be a little bit lower than what it really is. So what am I getting at here? If we actually went around and measured people's height and weight and calculated their BMI, this map may actually, believe it or not, look worse than what it actually already does, because we'd probably find that people are just being slightly dishonest about their current height and weight. Well, let's go back to 1985. You can see in 1985, all states were below 20%. So jump back here, 2012, there's no states below 20%. 2012, 1985, freshman year in high school for me, all states are below 20%. So in roughly almost 30 years' time, is that right? 85 to 2014, In 30 years' time, our country has gone from no states being over 20% to all states being over 20% for obesity. It's mind-blowing, to say the least. What many people don't understand is the factors that influence this energy in, energy out equation that we're going to be talking about. In other words, we are expending calories on a daily basis. We're also ingesting. Many people understand the calories being ingested, right? That's the food and beverages that you drink. But what about how we expend calories? Well, we have something, there's multiple components, and the first component, which is the biggest portion of our caloric expenditure, is called our basal metabolic rate. And what this is basically is the amount of calories that your body burns at complete rest, doing nothing at all. If you stayed in your bed for 24 hours continuously, I feel like I may need to do that every once in a while, but if you stayed in your bed for 24 hours continuously, you would still be burning calories even though your body wouldn't be moving. And that's oftentimes perplexing to people. What's even more perplexing about it is that those number of calories that are needed just to keep your body alive represent the majority of calories you'll burn in a day. So your heart beating, your lungs breathing, keeping your body temperature at that 98.6, those are all energy requiring activities, and they represent the largest portion of caloric expenditure. Now this number is going to vary in between individuals, and we'll see in a moment how it varies. But for now, know that it's approximately 1 calorie per minute. Most of us burn about 1 calorie per minute. Now, you can do some quick math because we know there's 60 minutes in an hour. There's 24 hours in a day. If you burn 1 calorie per minute, that's almost 1,500 calories that your body is burning, your body is expending, doing nothing at all. Okay, that doesn't count any of the activity as you're watching this video that you've done on this day to this point. Getting out of bed, getting breakfast ready, getting your clothes on for the day, all those activities of daily living. Doesn't include any exercise you may have done today or will perform later in the day. Almost 1,500 calories just to stay alive. So what influences that? Well, how big you are. If you are a bigger person, you're going to burn slightly more than 1 calorie per minute. Are we talking about 2 or 3 calories? No, we're probably talking about 1.1 or 1.2. It's a very small order of magnitude. But if you're bigger, you need more calories. If you're smaller, you need less. Your lean body mass, so how muscular you are. If you take 2 people, let's just say they're both 150 pounds, but one has got a lot of muscle, one has little muscle, the person with more muscle mass will burn more calories because those muscles require more calories to exist. As we get older, typically our lean body mass decreases, and when I say this happens around age 30, in fact, that our lean body mass decreases unless we are actively trying to build it up. And then in much older age, like 70 and over, we start to shrink. So not only does our lean body mass dissipate, but our body's surface area does as well. We get smaller in size. Thyroid hormone function is a big one in our country. We're seeing almost an epidemic of thyroid disorders, particularly in middle-aged women. And your thyroid hormone helps to regulate your basal metabolic rate. So very important that your thyroid is functioning normally. Pregnancy and menstrual cycle both increase one's metabolic rate, as does the use of stimulants such as caffeine and tobacco. Second component of the number of calories that we expend in the day is obviously our physical activity. And it doesn't mean just exercise, right? It's any time that you move your body, you're going to increase your energy expenditure. A lot of times when I'm lecturing up in front of the class, you'll notice I'm walking back and forth. It's not really formal exercise, right? But it is increasing my energy expenditure as opposed to if I just stood still or sat. Now, physical activity is the most variable portion of one's caloric expenditure. In other words, I can choose to be very sedentary, or I can choose to be very physically active. I can choose to stand versus sit. I can choose to pace versus stand. I can choose to go work out later today. I can choose to walk my dogs. I can choose to park at a spot furthest from the entrance to a supermarket and walk my way in, right? There's all kinds of ways that we can just be more physically active that don't necessarily have to be exercise in the formal sense of the word. And we know that when people don't move their bodies, it contributes to obesity. However, I want you to think about a few questions. Does this intentional exercise that we perform, going to the gym, going for a run, these things that we do as a culture in the United States, does it always translate into weight loss? Do people who go and work out always lose weight? If they don't lose weight, well, what are the reasons for that? Because I have seen, being in the type of work that I do, I've seen people who work out 5, 6, 7 times a week. They go to the gym religiously, but they just don't seem to have any changes in weight or body composition. So what factors might make exercise not stimulate this weight loss that we might anticipate? And then lastly, consider, is it easier to reduce calorie consumption in order to lose weight and reduce your energy intake? Or does it make more sense to be more physically active if you want to lose 1 pound a week? Which one of those to you seems like it would be easier? Third component of energy expenditure is called the thermic effect of food. And this is the energy that's required to metabolize the food that we ingest. It's not a huge amount of energy. You can think of it, as the slide tells us, as like a sales tax, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the total calories that we consume. And the macronutrient with the highest thermic effect of food is actually protein. So protein, we know, it provides us satiety, a sense of fullness, more so than carbohydrate and fat. It also requires a little bit more energy to digest, absorb, and metabolize protein. But again, not necessarily to the extent where it's substantial or significant, and that we would recommend everyone follow high protein diets. The fourth and last component of our energy expenditure is called adaptive thermogenesis, also known as non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or just abbreviated NEAT. What NEAT is the little movements that we make throughout the day that can add up quite substantially and contribute to energy expenditure. Research on NEAT has shown that people who engage in these little movements actually are associated with a lower body mass index. So what are we getting at? What kind of little movements are we talking about? Well, shivering is one form of NEAT. Those tiny muscular movements your body makes to keep itself warm increase your caloric expenditure. But also we have people who we notice who do a lot of fidgeting. They're of the nervous type. A lot of times in the classroom, I'll look for students who are playing with a pen, or more likely shaking a leg or foot. These people we might describe them as having ants in their pants, right? They're always kind of moving, can't sit still. So research shows that if you make those tiny little movements, probably subconsciously, right? If you don't already do them, you probably can't train yourself to do them. But if you're the type of person who fidgets a lot, it's more likely that you're going to have a lower body mass index. Okay, I'm going to stop this video, part 1. I'm going to pick up with part 2 with how we determine one's energy needs. So tune in for part 2 of this chapter 7 series of videos.